Well, she hasn't even been charged with anything. Kevin Hassett talked about it earlier, president's economic advisor. Listen to what he said.
The president absolutely has authority to fire a Fed governor for cause. And I think the accusations are serious. And I look forward to seeing the outcome. If I were her in her circumstance, I would take leave right now. I think it's the honorable thing to do.
You've been to Cracker Barrel a lot, I'm guessing, right? Road trips, make a stop at the...
Never been able to solve the peg game. That just drives me crazy.
Thank you. So you know what we're talking about. I'll take a chicken fried steak in here during the break. Is the president going to fire Lisa Cook?
So I think there's two things that are really important to keep in mind when it comes to this situation. The first is, can Lisa Cook remain at the Federal Reserve while the court cases continue to play out? Now, my colleague Elliot Stein said on the terminal just this morning, this is the most important thing. And he thinks that will be decided by fairly soon. It will get to the Supreme Court by the end of the year. Because if she can't remain at the Federal Reserve, there is this potential that President Trump could nominate somebody else. And if Stephen Myron is confirmed at this point, you have a situation where 4 out of 7 Fed governors are then aligned, or at least politically leaning with President Trump. And then we get into the situation with the markets most care about is, could the regional bank presidents not be reauthorized in February? But what we're telling our clients is there's a lot of steps between now and that point that have to play out. So again, this is something that's like an ultimate nuclear option, if you will, but there's still a lot of steps before we get there.
This next level, starting to lean on the 12 regional banks, explain why that would be disruptive to people who are just learning about this. People get, okay, you're going to fire a Fed governor. What could the president do if he leveraged the regional banks?
Well, the regional bank presidents are the ones that serve on the FOMC in addition to those board governors, and there's a rotation between those regional bank presidents. So if we get into a situation, and like Bloomberg News reported just this morning, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was saying, look, if you don't get the nod for Federal Reserve chairman's, to replace Jerome Powell, maybe some of those candidates can then next be the next regional bank president. So if President Trump puts allies or people that believe in his monetary policy goals on those regional bank presidencies, then you have an FOMC that's voting very much in the Trump mindset. So again, very important. And Bill Dudley, put out a great column this morning for Bloomberg Opinion saying that maybe market participants haven't really taken that into account.
Really interesting. With all of that said, are you getting phone calls about this? Are clients nervous yet?
So clients want to know the legality of the process. And this is where my colleague Elliot is really involved in this. And this is, can Lisa Cook remain at the Federal Reserve while this court case continues? That will most likely go to the Supreme Court ASAP. And then secondly, can the president fire Governor Cook for cause? And the question here is, and this is what Elliot and I put out on the terminal, is, the idea that she was fired for cause before there was even an indictment or a conviction or even a finding from an inspector general, Elliot's take is that most likely the president doesn't have that authority. But again, time will tell.
Confirmation hearing for Stephen Myron is apparently set for next week. Did this affair just change for him, get more difficult? You're going to have a lot of at least Democratic lawmakers want to air this out now.
Absolutely. I mean, even the other reporting that's come out of Bloomberg News is that they were talking over at the White House potentially about allowing him to remain at the CEA while he's also serving as a Fed governor. And it sounds like some of the Senate Republicans aren't happy with that. But next week is certainly going to be a lightning rod for this debate. And obviously, this is going to be a discussion amongst all the members. But I would also say is that just remember, and this is my little secret thing that I would just throw out there, is that Senator Tom Tillis serves on that committee. Senator Tom Tillis has shown, and also is not running for re-election, a desire to be, somewhat not on board with just the White House's ambitions or goals here. So I'm not saying we're going to get a Senator McCain thumbs down, moment, but that's one of the things that I'm keeping in mind is seeing what Senator Tillis's reaction is to this.
Really interesting. Will the markets move on this until there's some, a charge is filed or something changes beyond the court case?
I don't think so. I think the markets are somewhat just anticipating that this is going to play out through the courts and that the nuclear option, if you will, which is these regional bank presidents in February, there's a lot of steps between now and then. And so I think the market is just willing to watch those steps take
really
forward.
Interesting. As we spend time with Nathan Dean, we always want to know who's calling Nathan, because that's a big part of his job, right? He's interfacing and talking with clients of Bloomberg, terminal users, on a regular basis. And I'm guessing your phone's going to start ringing when lawmakers come back next week, because shutdown will be back in the air. Remember, we were talking about this every day a couple of weeks ago. You throw in a little Jeffrey Epstein and a couple of things, and it just falls right off the radar. But the fact is, when lawmakers come back, they're going to have something like 14 business days to fund the government. And a lot of folks think this is going to shut down. Have you started running odds yet?
Yeah, so we're at a 40% chance of not a shutdown. And the reason why I may be a little out of consensus here is because there's a lot of rhetoric. I mean, look, and I should also just say from the market perspective, there really is no market impact of a government shutdown. For the contractors and the folks who live here in the Washington, D.C. area, it's obviously different. But the reason why I don't think there's going to be a shutdown is I'm not exactly sure how the Democrats get out of it as an end game. Because if the government shuts down, I could easily see the White House coming back and saying, you know what, let's run the country for 3 to 6 months with the government shut down and see what happens. Right. And, for me, the question is, as you go into these funding fights, and again, I think you're going to kick the can to either December or March, which party thinks that they're politically advantageous by the shutdown? Right. And I think both parties are going to go into it. And I'm not sure either party is going to say this is good for us.
If you're Chuck Schumer, though, you could get fired if you tell your members to help out in this process, right? I mean, after the last turn on government funding, there's a real question about whether Democrats, in fact, are bracing for a shutdown. Many have said, even on this show, that we can't do it without an exit strategy, to your point. What would that be, though? What are they possibly going to get out of Republicans to call it a deal?
Well, I think what happens here is the Republicans come in with a proposal. The Democrats don't like that proposal. And then as we get, it's like the whole Stephen Dennis tweet that's like, no deal, no deal. Yes, you have a deal. Then no, you don't have a deal. And I think what happens is that at the last second, both parties just say, you know what? We've been negotiating. We're not getting anywhere. Let's just kick the can because, and I go back to this point, is that if the Democrats think that they're going to have a shot of taking the House, and there's even whispers amongst the Democratic circles that they potentially could have a chance at the Senate, is a government shutdown going to help you to that goal? They're going to have that decision over the next couple of weeks. I'm not exactly sure that the Chuck Schumers or the Hakeem Jeffries of the world are going to think that's
really
the case.
So 60% chance of a shutdown, if I'm hearing you correct.
No. 40% chance of a shutdown, 60% not a shutdown.
Of not a shutdown.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. So take it to the bank. You hear it always from Nathan Dean first.